Peterson. Present. Gooding.
Present.
Pavitt. Present. Hamilton.
Present.
Langston.
Here. Okay, item number 2, public comment. Thing tonight, Mark? Okay. You're on number 3, approval of tonight's agenda. Everybody had a chance to review, questions, comments? Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Peterson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes? Ayes have it. Approval of the utility board meeting minutes from April 22nd, 2025. Anything to be corrected? Adjusted? Didn't see anything. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Patovich,
Second.
second by Gooding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. Moving on, number 5, financial and administrative. Consider to approve the bills payable. Let's just take a look at that. I think I had one question. And Colin's not here, so hopefully there was a, looks like a switch or a connector, from Fletcher Reinhardt, $2,400. Just trying to get some more information on that. Anybody else see anything that stood out that,
He said it was all for an inventory.
okay,
Here's that.
okay. Okay, so there's multiple items here, I see. So it wasn't just like. No, no,
They're just restocking the shelves.
Yeah.
correct?
yep, it looks like just a variety of items here, so yeah, fuse links, bolts, mains, connectors. Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you. I didn't have anything further on that. Motion to approve? Peterson,
Second.
second by Patovich. All in favor, say aye. Aye, nays, ayes have it. Okay, 5B, consideration to approve proposal from Bonesack and Fromell to provide city's financial auditing services for fiscal year 2026 at amount not to exceed $38,500 plus $4,000 per major program. Is there more information you can provide on that?
So this is just our annual audit engagement letter for our fiscal year financial audit. Since fiscal year 21, we've had Bonsack and Brownell. The cost for the actual audit has gone up $1,000 each year. It was $35,500 in fiscal year 21, $38,500 in fiscal year 24. That has remained at $38,500. There's no increase this year. But the increase per major program did go up 500. It was 3,500 the past 4 years. This year, that price went up 500. That does not have a big impact, especially on utility. That is only if we exceed, I think it's 750,000 in federal funding in a year, then those projects would need a single audit and they would be done separately from the city's financial end of year audit. So that's just in case, if we have projects that have used federal funding in amount over 750,000, we shouldn't have any this year that require those. It's just part of the engagement proposal in case we do.
Now, I see this not to exceed, so is this a joint consideration for the city and their services as well as us? So it wouldn't necessarily be the utility board include incurring up to the 38,500. It would just be our portion of what we split with the city. Is that right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And this was on their agenda last night and they approved it.
Yes. Yep.
Anybody else have any questions?
So this 38,000 sum is our portion, or is that what's gonna be split between the two of us?
That's the full portion for the year. So that's what's split between the departments that contribute to it.
That's the max amount.
Yep.
Not for just utility for the
So
city.
the city will have
the
their
audit.
portion, and the sewer will have their portion, then we'll have.
And do we pay that whole bill outright then for this?
Yeah, it gets billed at the close to the end of the fiscal year. when they are done with the final report, and then it gets split between departments.
But I did pose the question last night, since it says not to exceed, they're gonna check previous year to see, did we always max that, or how close did we come to that general estimate?
Actually did just finish that for this meeting, so each year that they've given us that audit price for the year, it has been that same price.
Anybody else have any questions? Motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Hamilton,
Second.
second by Gooding. Favor say aye. Aye. Nays, ayes have it. And then 5C, update on the CBA negotiations. That's, you can help us with as well.
So we did reach a tentative agreement on the collective bargaining agreement with the Eldred Employee Association. That's the collective bargaining unit that has the public works and utility employees in it. So we are drafting the terms of that proposal, and we'll have that on your next agenda for consideration for approval. As soon as we have our city attorney draft that up, we will send it out to that. And she'll be here as well.
Excellent.
Will we be able to get that like a couple days in advance of the meeting?
We'll get it out, because as soon as we have it all drafted, and so that there's time to read through it.
Any other questions? Moving on, 5D, discussion and consideration on investing a portion of the utility funds in T-bills. So I know this has kind of worked out for us in the past, and we have, I guess, the provisions made in the policies and the necessary requirements for the board to be able to pursue this, so, I guess this is something that we need to consider if, you know, we want to continue. I think it worked well last time when Craig did it, it just didn't have everything right in place, so.
Yeah, it didn't have our ducks in a row.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think, you know, I mean, it's people's money, and it's like, you know, it's just sitting there, it's not making money. That's a lot of money not making money. So it needs to, the T-bills are safe.
Sure.
It's not like, it's not much different than saving accounts that you make money.
What's the return on it?
Well, at the time, the last time, it was like 5.25. And we were only getting like 3/4 in the savings account.
Surprised you're even getting that.
Yeah, well, that's because there's a pretty good chunk of money there, so.
Yeah.
They think they was feeling generous, well. And Greg didn't think it was right, and we talked about it, and he just did it. So,
It was a brilliant idea, though.
Yeah, it's great, yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm all for it. I'm all
and, you
for
know,
it.
Greg and I talked about when we was gonna do it, just put in a portion, so it comes out every couple of weeks, and then there a new one goes in. So if you just kept rolling it all the time, you know, when your big bills are coming ahead, then you always have money in your account. You always leave, you don't put it all in there, but put a good portion of it in there. And then I think T-bills right now are like 4.5, but it's still only getting out of the bank, you know, it's still getting about 1.25 at best. So you're still making over 3% on your money, and it's a good chunk of money to make 3% on, so.
Yeah, it's better than just sitting in a non-interest bearing savings account.
So we talking like maybe a 2 week, 4 week, 6 week, or 8?
We did 4 weeks last time. wasn't it?
Yeah, it was 4 weeks last time. I mean, he was gonna every 4 weeks. Well, actually, first time would be every 2 weeks for the first 3 is what we talked about. This is a long time ago, so I'm going off memory and I'm old, so. We're gonna, you know, we're gonna put it in every 2 weeks, so you always have it coming back out. So there's always gonna be money there into the account if you needed it. Plus, there would always be our normal bills and stuff are gonna be, you know, always gonna have that account, that money in that account anyway. We're never gonna invest all of it. But there's a big portion that we wasn't getting anything on. So I mean, a little bit on the savings account, but it was never in the amount that we figured, you know, I mean, we spent 40,000 on a new pickup, well, but about a lot of new pickups had it all worked out. I mean, versus a pickup.
What's the brokerage firm you used to purchase those?
He went up to,
First Central.
First Central and
No,
done it.
just buy them right through the bank.
Yeah,
Yeah, now they weren't, I don't believe they were affiliated with the bank, but he was in the bank.
It's the financial
Yeah,
advisor.
it's the thing, but it was, LP Financial or something like that. It was a financial advisor that was.
Barry Boss, or whatever the name is.
And anybody can, yeah, I mean, I'm sure with any firm, but.
4.3% is the 1 month. 4.302.
Yeah, I think that's what I just read. That's, well, you know.
Wasn't there variables though, like the longer you had it in, like,
Yeah,
Actually, it drops a
Does it-
little bit.
was it-
Well, the 3 months a little bit higher, but the 6 month is 4.2.
Yeah.
So this,
but you know, if you start rolling it, you're gonna get the 4 something versus what's the savings account now?
they all vary. by
Yeah,
how much
very
money
small
you have.
amount by comparison.
yeah,
You know, you're losing over 3%, that's what I figured up anyway, so. That's a lot of money to lose 3% on. So,
because we have that policy in place now, right? The list of places that we can do the investments through.
You do have your list of depositories. There is not a financial advisor, I think, on there, but you, in order to, deposit an investment, you'd need to do a resolution that would state what the purpose of the revenue was anyway, so that would be the step that you would take just before investing. And if you're gonna continue to roll it over, that can be built into the resolution too, that the intent is to let it roll over and renew unless the board.
So can it
Vote
be
to
kind of
stop it,
vague,
so.
like capital improvements, such as.
I believe it can be. I'll check to see if it has, I don't think it has to be tied to a specific project. It just has to have a purpose of what that revenue is gonna be used for, so. I would assume,
Like if we need a new plant. And some, you know, or, you know.
maintaining equipment,
Yeah,
Well, I mean, we've got improvements that are coming that
Yeah.
ISG is working up, so.
we don't know what's ahead of us too.
That's,
Not all of it.
Okay.
so every little bit will
Yeah.
help.
well, and that's.
That's,
those
that way we could earmark it, you know,
hundreds of
appropriately.
thousands of dollars, not just,
Yeah,
I
so,
mean, we know there's a well project coming in the next
Yes.
5 years. That's
it's a good start,
a
you know, I
big
mean,
cost.
Yeah.
there will.
Yeah, because that's, if we have to be specific, it would be helpful and, you know exactly.
And if it's just goes to there, that's fine too.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, you can only put it in just one project and you don't have a time limit on it, do you? Where you can keep rolling over just into one project because
Yeah.
of what's coming down the road in 5 years, so.
if we just pick the largest one and then keep applying the money. to
Yeah,
that.
that's kind of what I was thinking, find a big one.
PFN will be presenting, I believe, at your next meeting to talk through what the revenue requirements are and what the rate recommendation is gonna be. And they have the new well site built into that for the next 5 fiscal years, and I think it's at like 1.5 million. So we're looking at having to take out some sort of loan or interfund loan or something to be able to fund that. So, this would certainly help with
Absolutely.
having that as well, and reducing the amount you have to borrow.
Yep.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to get some specifics and make sure that we get a resolution done.
Get our
Nail
ducks in,
down.
get our ducks in a row
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah,
What's the amount?
That's what I was gonna say, so for the discussion and consideration, do we need to identify an amount and a term tonight? Or, because we're gonna have to write a resolution, correct, to proceed with it, so.
We can draft a resolution and have it ready for your next meeting, and if you know what amount you wanna put in there, if you vote to change that in your next meeting, you can still pass the resolution and make note of that change, and then we can update the amount and have you sign it. So you'd still be able to pass it at the next meeting if you knew the amount you wanted to do.
I mean, I'd say put as much money in it as you can.
Well,
Doing any good sitting there.
at the last time when Craig did it, we put in 2 million. And then he was gonna put it in 5 different sets, so if he was gonna 2 million every 2 weeks, gonna go back in. And with that way he had that lined up, it was gonna be pretty substantial amount of money.
How much total?
Or he would have made. The city would have made, the utility board would have made about 400,
But how much?
and 2 million in each one, by.
Gotcha. So 10 million total.
Yes. I'm sorry,
Well, but it would roll in and out, so.
but yeah,
Yeah.
you always got money coming,
You don't-
you're always gonna have access to money within 2 weeks. And nobody ever needs that kind of money tomorrow.
But there are procedures too that you can pull
Right.
out within a couple days too, right?
That you can,
You could actually pull it out within a couple days. You get penalized,
Yeah,
but then you could pull it out within that 2 weeks. You just get a penalty on
Yeah, but if you always left 2 million just in a savings.
it. Right.
You never did have to pull it out because you always got your cash reserve sitting right there where you can just grab it right now. You know, we'll never have you ever had anything more than 2 million? It needed to have 2 million right now, within a week, I mean, emergency.
no,
So that's what I'm trying to get at, is you're always rolling every 2 weeks, so there's always gonna be money there. And it's always gonna be available. It's just you're getting 3% more on the money than it is just laying around.
wasn't there something too, though, with a percentage of what we could remove and what we had to keep in? There was something with that we needed to
That's-
be aware of too.
you want to keep a certain amount in your reserves. I think it's 3 months of, operating.
Yeah, I knew we talked about that a little bit when that had all happened.
The other tricky part for, the utility is gonna be that your water department is the one with the defined large scale capital costs. The electric is the one with the reserves. Water department has, I think, less than 1 million in reserves right now, where the electric department has over 5 million. And so if you invest the electric, it has to go towards an electric project.
We don't have as much to mess around with the water. And then we still have to keep so much in there, so our investment amount goes down quite a bit. But it's still a good idea to do it and.
Oh, sure.
So on the water, so we would have to do 2 of them, basically, 2 different.
Yeah.
But you know, if we're going with just water, we should also have to have, electricity to run the pumps and stuff, so. I mean. Well, I mean, you do, don't you? I'm not trying to be,
No,
I'm just trying to look at, well, the big picture. You know, you can't run generators and stuff unless you buy fuel or you run them off electricity, so if you put in a new well, you have to have all those, boards and computers and everything else to run the water. As I mean, they're kind of together in their own way.
that would be a different type of electric cost, though, than what our electric utility is providing, and it wouldn't be our utility that is providing that service. So it would get a little bit tricky there, but you still could invest a portion of the water reserves, because you'd still have the liquidity of the electric reserves. If you needed it in an emergency, you could do an interfund loan with the reserves that you have in another department. You just have to pay them back once you have those funds released back.
So now why does that, why are they separate? Is it just a state law?
Yeah, because it's a public agency, so it's not to make a profit. You can only charge the rates that you need to charge to be able to provide the services and to expand the services to provide them for your future growth and expansion, not to have a profit.
So that's okay to have $5 million in reserve?
Not really. No, that's something that we've brought it before, that
Yeah.
we're definitely higher than what we should be. There's kind of a spot of limit that you want to be at for what your reserve should be. And just,
So that's what I want to get a better understanding is, you know, how that reserve account just fell into the electric and we didn't have one set up for the water department as well.
we do, the water department was not making rate increases regularly. They've done one in the past, I think 15 years, where the electric is increasing a little bit each year. They're making more, they've got revenue built into their rate requirement, so they've been building their reserves, and the water department has not had that same focus on it for looking at the rates and making sure that we're maintaining the cost of service in those rates, plus building for future projects. So that's what we'll be doing with the information that PFM has put together for us. So they'll have a recommendation on what those rates need to do in order to build those reserves. But that's where we fall behind right now, where the electric has been consistently looking at their rates and increasing them accordingly, and has been able to build those reserves.
So we can't just call the Eldridge Utilities and lump them together?
No, they're all proprietary funds within the city funds. So sewer has to go to sewer, water goes to water, electric goes to electric.
I guess the one thing that comes to mind for me is if we're gonna be considering a rate increase on the water, yet we're talking about investing funds now, and that's,
The problem is it's flip flop. The water company should have been the ones that were increasing that right
Yeah.
now, because
Yeah.
the improvements are coming right around the corner are gonna be astronomical.
Yep.
and I get that, but
And then all of a sudden now we're gonna have a huge rate increase to cover just the infrastructure that we need to maintain for not only what we have now, but for any growth.
yeah.
Yep.
So I would say one argument you could make for investing in the water fund, that it may, because now that we'll have that rate recommendation that's built out, they usually do about 3 to 5 years. It may change when we look at it next year to see if we're still on track. It may be able to reduce some of the rate increase that we would need to have to build that up if we're investing and making some interest on what we have now. So it could help to decrease what the projected rate increase is gonna be.
Sure,
Expansions, so.
and I'm all for that, it's,
Well, and every time if we run it, and every time we make money, well, it's like, okay, I got $10 to start with. Now I invest $12 next time, so it's gonna consistently grow too, so.
but if you're gonna invest $2 million, it's gonna be in electric funds. The majority of it, I think, is gonna be in electric funds, so the electric department will benefit but I don't know that we have enough to be investing on the water side.
Well, I guess if you're only talking a 2-week time frame, though, I mean,
Yeah,
right?
We could pull some out. I think we just need to look at what we have for, what we need in there for reserves, what we have, and then come back with a number, and then we can look at that and say, okay, out of this much money, how much are we comfortable removing and investing? And then see what it looks like every couple of weeks and go from there. I mean,
I agree with that.
but we need to probably have a little bit better of an idea exactly what we have to actually play with to offset costs, because depending upon what the rate increases are, it's gonna be, if we can save the people money, and we're part of the paying crowd too. I mean, nobody wants to pay a whole lot more, and if we can be smart with the money that we do have now and offset that cost down the road, I think it's a good idea.
Sure. No, I like the position of, let's find out what we can, save maybe move into a T-bill, and then we can, let anybody else have anything about that. Okay. So moving on to 5E, financial administrative department updates. Hello.
The only update I have, other than the tentative agreement on the collective bargaining, is that the website project is moving along. They're doing the build out right now. We've gotten through all of kinds of the draft phases of it, so they are looking at having something ready for us to review and hopefully planning to launch that website in mid-July.
I just had, as you know, Gage started on the 14th. We've already attended the Tiger User Group meeting on the 15th. And then him and Amber and I all attended the IMAU conference, first and 22nd. He has completed the utility billing process from beginning to end, and he's doing amazing.
Thank you, Sadie. Gage, anything from you? Welcome.
Thank, I don't think I have anything.
All right, moving on, number 6, electric department. I don't see Colin here, but did he
He
check
left.
in with somebody?
Yeah, and no outages.
No outages, all right. And then, 6B, consideration to approve renewable of marketing service agreement with Mid-America Energy. So this is for the, our master service agreement with Mid-America to operate their 2 generating facilities that we have ownership in. Anybody had a chance to review that? It's in the packet. Questions?
We don't have any questions. Not that business minded.
Yeah, no, it's just saying that Mid-America is gonna operate the plants and we trust them,
So
so.
that's kind of what I agree, and it's even, so I was like, what you asking?
So obviously they had their proposal in there. Anybody else have anything on that? And that's, that marketing or the MSA is fairly aligned with the last one we had with them.
Yeah, I don't think it changes any terms other than just for the year term of this particular agreement. I can send out the full master, services agreement, but nothing else in there, was changed. They're just extending it another year.
Okay. I hear a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Peterson. Second by Hamilton. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Nays? Ayes have it. And Colin, we need any other department updates?
Yeah, he was, crew completed the overhead to underground primary line replacement between South Third Place and West Sheridan Drive. The crew also set transformers and completed cable terminations in the inner circle at Grunwald Second Edition. And Devin Gear was able to take a placement exam for his apprenticeship and is now starting as a step 2 apprentice.
Excellent.
When's he start? I'm sorry.
It doesn't say when,
Oh, okay.
just that he's able to start as a step.
Good. Okay. And on number 7, water department, A. Grants. Debbie?
Did send an email today. As far as breaks, there's no breaks, but there was a leak at West Lincoln Road and Redwood Circle. Dale Grunwald noticed the ground was soft back in October and that it was progressing. The water main in that addition is still under the maintenance bond. The leak was due to a rolled gasket and was repaired by Hawkeye Sewer and Water. Water loss is still being discussed, so you should have that for you at the next meeting.
Okay. 7B, the water test results. We have that as part of our packet. So it looks like everything came back, tip-top shape. Positive results, so everything was in line. Anybody have any questions on that?
Nothing.
All right, 7C. Update from Lenny Larson with ISG in the water system.
Yes.
Welcome, Lenny.
How's it going tonight? So, we met with Nevada and Keegan last Wednesday. One of the things we've been working on is evaluating different treatment technologies for any improvements or future expansions that may be required as the city continues to grow. We evaluated 5 different alternatives that would be feasible for this size community and the water characteristics that you have. Luckily, the raw water quality that you have is in good shape, so not a whole lot of treatment needed. For instance, your total hardness is 220 and between 200 and 220 for your raw, which is awfully low for the state of Iowa, so that's a good thing. Iron, you average right around 1.5. There isn't a health advisory or an MCL or a maximum limit for that. There's a secondary MCL, what they call for that, and that's just recommended compliance with that. Your raw for iron is right around 1.5, which the secondary MCO is 0.3, but your treatment moves it down below that. And then manganese, you average between 0.02 and 0.04, and the MCL for that is 0.05. There is a health advisory limit for that at 0.3, but your system is nowhere near that, so no concerns there. And that's just out of your raw well. So your existing water plant, we've been going through that. We've been asking Keegan to do some more testing. Currently, you have an aeration tank that's to oxidize, goes into a detention tank, and then it goes through a series of 8 filters. The filters are in parallel. Filter 1 and 2, they dose chlorine directly, pre-chlorinate those filters directly to each one of those filters. 3 and 4 operate biologically, and what that is doing is removing ammonia out of your raw water biologically. And then filters 5, 6, 7, and 8 have chlorine pre-fed into the pipe, the header pipe that distributes the water to each one of those filters. One of the things that we want to look at doing that there is being able to better control that feed, because for 1 and 2 specifically, because the chlorine feed comes in and then splits, but there's a longer run of pipe to get I believe it's filter 2 than filter 1. So in essence, you're more than likely feeding a little more chlorine to filter bed 1 than filter bed 2, just because it has a longer run of pipe. So, but we don't know if we're going to do anything with that, because our ultimate goal, one of the things we've been doing with Keegan and his team, is being able to sample after filters 3 and 4 to see what the ammonia removal is through those filters biologically, and have gotten great results. You're getting 95+% removal of ammonia. And part of the reason the city of Elbridge operates under chloramines is the ammonia. So what they're doing there to create that chloramine, which is the disinfectant in your distribution system, is they're essentially combining the raw ammonia with the chlorine that you're feeding the system, and that creates that chloramine to make sure that you have a disinfectant residual within your water distribution system. However, it can get quite tricky, especially as the weather starts to warm up, because it will start to break down, and that ammonia will nitrify with bacteria that grows on the walls of the pipes and in the distribution system, and form nitrite and nitrate. Specifically, nitrite's the more troubling one because the limit is so low. And that's some of the issues that they're having out in the system, where they're having to constantly flush during the summertime, is because they're starting to get their chlorine residual starting to drop, and their nitrite level starting to rise. So that's why they go out and flush to get that chlorine residual, or that total chlorine residual, back to where it needs to be. One of our goals is, and that we're working through, is to see at some point if we can convert the entire treatment plant, operate all 8 filters biologically. So you get all your ammonia removal through those filters. It will eliminate chlorine use, and then be able to just add the amount of chlorine you need to have sufficient chlorine residual within your distribution system. So your chlorine use will go down, and it will become a lot easier for them to handle the distribution system, because you won't have that ammonia present to be able to create that nitrate. And but they were doing that back in the early 2000s. They weren't doing biological ammonia removal. The other way to remove ammonia is just to blast it with a lot of chlorine and go to what we call breakpoint chlorination. And to get to that point, if you think about it, you need 17 parts of chlorine for every 1 part of ammonia to get truly to breakpoint chlorination. And so if your raw ammonia levels is 2.1 milligrams, or 1.5 to 2 milligrams per liter, you're having to feed quite a bit of chlorine to be able to get to that point. And what was occurring back then is, because you were feeding so much chlorine into the system, if there's a lot of contact time out in the system with organics, it can create disinfection byproducts. And that's what was occurring. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is reducing the amount of chlorine and just operating everything biological. So you don't get the formation of disinfection byproducts, and you don't have the issue of formation of nitrite out of your distribution system. And the other positive is it reduces your chlorine usage at the plant. So there's a cost savings at the end of the day there too. One of the things we want to do though, if you remember last fall, the city had Keegan and the guys had gone into free chlorine burn is what they call it, and what they're doing is switching over to free chlorine in the distribution system to remove all that bacteria growth that's been in the pipes and flushing it out through the hydrants. And there were complaints of some areas, especially closer to the water treatment plant, of a little bit of chlorine taste and then chlorine odor in the water. That's one of the projects on the list for the CIP is addressing the clear well. And that's to eliminate that short circuiting, so you're getting that whole chemical reaction in that clear well. One of the things that will be on the agenda for the next meeting is a remote operating vehicle inspection, ROV. So you don't have to shut down that clear well, so we can get an inspection down in there before we go forward with the project to make sure we're not missing anything. And that our proposed, what we're planning on doing, to eliminate that short circuiting actually works. So our assumption, and we were doing this with laser, tape measures, because it's the only way we can really get down there without getting into the water, or shutting the plant down for a period of time to be able to access it. We were using that, and what we found is we believe the wall, the actual clear well extends at each foundation wall. And with this ROV, one, we'll be able to assess the condition of the concrete down there. Keegan doesn't have any records of the last time an inspection, or to my knowledge right now, last time an inspection was done. So, we'll get to see how much sediment is built in there, and if it needs to be cleaned, and also a condition assessment. And then we can also truly state, does that clear well extend to the foundation wall? We want to figure that out, because the plan right now is to run the header pipe after everything comes out of the filters on each side of the building, go outside the wall. It's really the only way you can do it without having to go inside the tank itself. Up and down and around, and then penetrate the foundation wall and out that treated water into the clear well. And then you'll be outletting on each end, and the draw will be in the center of the clear well. So you're getting the longest distance of travel, and you're not short circuiting, and you get the proper residence time in that clear well that you need to get that chemical reaction. So that will also reduce some of the complaints you get when you're doing that, of the chlorine odor and chlorine taste. That ROV, the proposal, the price was $4,200 to do that, and they'll provide a report at the end of it. At that time, Keegan had asked me to get a proposal also for the detention tank and the existing 300,000 gallon tower. We don't need one for the 300,000 gallon tower, because an inspection was done in 2023, and you only need to get those every 4 to 5 years. So no need at this time to do that. And the detention tank was for $3,800, an additional $38 to do an inspection on that. And right now, I before this, I wouldn't have known it would have been a need, but when we were here last Wednesday, some of our operators were out there, helping Tanner, because Tanner's new out there, helping, kind of going through the sampling and, monitoring to make sure he's doing the proper things there, and, things went well. But one of the things that was noticed is the flow coming in is standard. I'm just gonna use 1,000 gallons per minute to make it simple. The flow coming from the wells was 1,000 gallons per minute. The flow leaving the plant was roughly 1,000 gallons per minute. But the flow between the detention tank and the filter units was anywhere from 500 gallons per minute to 1,500 gallons per minute. It was just a big spike. It was like that. So what we were able to ascertain is there is something that is partially from the pipe. So the water is constricted, and then once enough water pressure above builds up, it will flush the system through, and then it will just start the process back over and slowly climb, and then get a big spike. We know it's in between the bypass valve and the detention tank, because they opened that bypass valve and everything ran normal. So with that, I think it would be a good idea at this time just to make sure that there's not anything major going on. But my guess is something got in there, and it's just partially blocking the pipe. I haven't had a chance to talk to Keegan since we last spoke about it last week, but they were going to pop the hatch to that detention tank and look down to see if they could see anything there happening. But I just don't know if they have done that yet or not. So, but just wanted to give you an update on that. The different types of treatment we focused on was filtration, which is what you're currently doing. It would just be expanding our building new. of the filtration plan. That's just media filters. You oxidize with the aeration beforehand, and then it just goes through the filters before going out. The next option is what we want to convert the plant to, or what we're planning on doing right now, is doing biological filtration. Luckily, your ammonia levels aren't so high that you have to have individual tanks for the biological process. It can all happen within the filter media. So what we're planning on doing, or what that would be, is just biological ammonia removal and then filtration thereafter. And it would be the same process. It would either be expanding the existing plant or building a new plant elsewhere. The other option would be ion exchange, which could be cation or anion. Here, we wouldn't recommend it because one of the bigger things that have popped up over the last, I'd say, 8 to 10 years in the state of Iowa is chlorides on the wastewater side. And when you do ion exchange, you're using a brine solution to regenerate that media every so often. Usually it can range from every 3 days or to every, just depending on your water characteristics and what type of resin you have in there. A lot of communities are having to go away from that treatment because it's causing them to miss limits at their wastewater plant for chlorides. And unfortunately, there's no treatment developed yet for chlorides on the wastewater side. You don't have an issue right now. We don't want to install something at the water plant that will cause an issue though. And you guys are a little under 50% of what your limit would be. They don't issue a limit for something if you're less than 50%, based on every 5 years grabbing a sample. However, with backwash in this, you would be at least encroaching on that limit, would be my guess, just based on experience there. So talking through it as a group, we eliminated that one. It wasn't one that I was expecting to go too deeply in. Another one is reverse osmosis. There's nothing in the water here like arsenic or radium that we need to be concerned with where reverse osmosis would make sense. The only other reason you'd go with reverse osmosis is if you want really soft water or softer water with centralized softening. We're having Keegan confirm it, but right now, I believe your treated water going out to your residents is around 10 grains, which is in your which is soft. And usually what you're targeting with an RO system, unless there's a specific reason to go lower than that, which would be an industrial user or a commercial user that you would need to go lower than that. You don't want to go too soft because that can also cause issues with piping and corrosion. So, RO is much more energy intensive. It's easier to expand because it's a skid based system. So you pull in so many units of RO and you just kind of line them up next to each other. However, due to the cost and energy usage, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for the community here to go there unless there was a need for it. Like I said, it's not ruled out of the question. It's just not one we're pursuing at this time, just based on that information, especially if you already have 10 grains of hardness, you're doing pretty well as a community without softening. So that's not very common in the state of Iowa. We tend to have harder water in the state. So the last option that we looked into is lime softening. And that's just using a lime additive to be able to soften the water. The only thing with that is it produces a great water quality, great tasting water for the residents, and it's also going to be in that 8 to 10 grains of hardness. However, it doesn't treat ammonia, so we still have to deal with ammonia in that regard. And the cost of doing lime softening, your plant would have to be 3 to 4 MGD, million gallons per day. Plant currently, your average is 600,000 to 700,000 gallons per day, and your peak day is 1.3. A big industry may change that, but at this time, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because economically, it's going to be so much more. So right now, we're planning on sticking to the type of treatment you have, but converting it to biological for the reasons that I stated before. Just reduce chlorine use and ease of operation once you get it established would be nice. So, but we don't want to do that. It's done because we don't want to send in water that's not fully reactive and getting chlorine and odor and taste complaints.
So as far as an assessment with our current equipment to switch over to say a biological treatment plan, would there be a major major remodel of the equipment that we have, or is this,
Just disconnect the chlorine feed for pre-chlorination of each tank, and then, there will be anywhere from 1 to 3 months. It depends on how quickly the bugs grow on that media to be able to do the biological process. But there will be about a 6 to 8 week time frame as the system is converting over from chloramines to free chlorine. And that they'll be out flushing hydrants. But once you get fully converted over, it will be minimal. And there is, like I said, really the big thing that we have to do is make sure the clear well isn't short circuiting, but other than that, really the plan is set up to move the biological right away.
some of the options already described sound very expensive, so.
Yeah, RO is great, but it's expensive and I don't see a need for it right now unless there was a strong urge to do centralized softening and draw to bring in. So until that conversation starts, I don't know if it's the money you want to invest. So,
Yeah.
Clarion, which is a town of a little smaller than about half the size of Eldridge, is in the process of building an RO plant. It's $15 million. To give you an idea, and I would expect yours to be more than that, not a lot more, because they have a pretty large industrial user there, but not a whole lot less for water usage per day, but their growth isn't what Eldridge is, because they're in the middle of the state, far enough north where they're outside the hotbed where people are moving to. I would imagine yours would be in that 20 to 25 if I had to guess right now, so.
Biological sounds good.
Yeah. The differences of health benefits, such as the biological, is there like versus the farming?
Chlorine, so if you have long times in the system, it's disinfection byproducts with the free chlorine system. We believe, and this is, working with Julie, that works with us, who's worked at the DNR and seen a lot of these systems. She believes the reason that was occurring before is because of the amount of chlorine that was being used just to get to remove the ammonia. Here, we won't be using the chlorine to remove the ammonia. We'll let Mother Nature kind of do its thing and then use chlorine to polish and then have the proper disinfection. So that would be the major concern in that regard. Another piece is how high your raw ammonia level is, because another step may need to be added if your raw ammonia is high enough, but here it's not. So because of those reasons, we think it will solve a lot of issues that you're currently having and then also reduce operations costs in the long run.
So we're using less product and stuff, so
Yeah.
essentially it will probably taste better, smell better.
Yeah, another thing with chloramines is if you get we call it the chlorine curve, it kind of goes up, comes back down and then shoots up. And shooting up when you get down to that last part on the bottom is where you hit breakpoint chlorination and it's just free chlorine after that. If you get on the wrong side of that first curve, you'll get a lot of complaints about smell, taste, odor. Where if you're pushing directly to free chlorine, you won't have that issue unless you're not getting the reaction that you need.
People would like that.
Yeah, it's probably,
Yeah.
there's a long.
Yeah,
There's a lot of process.
Yeah.
We're doing this at 3 other facilities right now, so be able to share some results with you there, but they're in the process of converting over, so. But it hasn't been too bad right now, so. The one thing that we will do, I should have mentioned, is when we're trying to grow the bacteria on the media and the filters, we'll add another chemical, it's orthophosphate, but it's not very much that you're adding. It's just enough to provide some additional food to help
Yeah,
get that bacteria growth going.
probiotic, prebiotic.
Yes. So,
Thank you, Lenny. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Lenny.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Libby. Okay, moving on, 7D. Discussion and consideration to approve the quote from Climate Engineers for the replacement of actuators on the HVAC outside air intake and exhaust. So the proposal was in here. I wish it would have been more of a breakdown. It said 3 actuators and the proposal was what, $3,035, $3,500, so. And those are just little motor actuators on the dampers.
We only get a quote from Climate because we're the only ones that do it, or because that's who we use all the time?
I think we might have a contract with them.
I think this is under that, contract that we did for the
Like the maintenance.
maintenance contract, yeah.
So Keegan did provide a little bit of, additional notes on this. So the outside air and exhaust vents are currently propped open in order for the HVAC to cycle air. The controller is functioning properly and requesting the actuators to operate, but the actuators are seized. They need the outside air and exhaust vents to function when called to turn over the air in the filter room to eliminate as much pollution potential as possible, regulate humidity and control temperature.
Yeah, I know he's mentioned that in previous meetings that they're not operating and so obviously the economizer and things like that are operating as they are intended to. I just would like to get a better idea of how much these dampeners, I mean, $3,500. I mean, these are the damper motors are usually just not that expensive, and then a pitted compressor contactor. Depending on the size of that, they've got little rebuild kits for the contacts. We've looked into that, as opposed to replacing the entire contactor. But most of the contactors, if it's a size 0 or even size 1, you know, that's still under $1,000. Typically, what I've seen in the past. It just seems. And sometimes contractors will be quick to recommend replacing the entire contactor when you could just get the replacement contact kits that go in there.
Well, we can probably request the more detail of the breakdown.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, I think, or we get a second proposal. I mean, I understand we work with climate engineers quite a bit, but, just wondering if. But I wanna see it get fixed as well, because this.
Yeah,
It's lingered for a while.
Yeah, it needs to be fixed about as soon as we can get it done, but,
I had that detail pretty quick.
Yeah.
but everything else, don't just throw money out the door. So,
Okay, anybody else have any opinions on this?
I'm fine with what you want.
Table it till we get further more information on breakdown on if, the cost of each of these motor actuators, and then, if it's possible, then we can just do a contact kit on that contactor. Thanks, Lenny.
Hi, Lenny.
Yes. Have any discussion on attendance for JM Eagle pipe manufacturing plant tour? So it looks like there was some updated information on, that'll be on now Thursday, the 8th instead of Friday, the 9th.
Keegan put a note for that one too. The JM Eagle plant tour needs to be rescheduled. The plant manager and quality control personnel will be gone the rest of the week. He's gonna continue to communicate with JM Eagle and find another date that works for both the city and their management.
Oh, okay.
no problem.
And 7F, any other department updates? You going up with anybody?
He said 2 more weeks left of hydrant flushing. High service number 1 is currently shut down due to failure. He's talking to Northway Well and Pump about pulling the motor and pump early and having it invoiced for July in the new fiscal year. Other than that, all is well.
All right. Is this to number 8? I hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion by Peterson, second by Babich. All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye, nays? Ayes have it. Adjourned.